Now in small business, first comes the great idea for a product or a service that you think the world needs. Next is the market, who we're going to sell it to and how we're going to sell it. Then comes the marketing. And hopefully your business gets so incredibly busy that you need to start hiring people to give you a hand. Along with Kat Paz in the studio. Hi, Kat.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I have got HR expert Pia Engstrom. Welcome to Taking Care of Business, Pia.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Kat.
What a pleasure to have someone that knows what they're talking about with HR. What a can of worms. Yeah. Now, Pia, you've come from big business to dealing with the HR for small to medium-sized business. What's the main difference that you find?
The main difference is when you're in big business, you are the expert in the HR, and going to small business, you wear a number of different hats. So you're the accountant, the business development person, the HR person, the everything.
Counsellor.
Yeah,
absolutely. And all the small business owners out there are listening to that and going, oh, yeah, we got a lot of hats. Oh, yeah, we have to do everything. We have to be mum and dad for this business. We need to grow it. Now, because we can't be experts at everything, and we can't if we're wearing a lot of hats, you probably see a lot of mistakes that are made in small business in HR. Give us, what are the top mistakes that happen?
I think the biggest mistake is a poor recruitment process or poor recruitment practices. Yep. Just not hiring the right person and not following a process of getting that person on board. So, I mean, I don't think many people know that to actually re-recruit a person can cost up to their salary, which is quite a lot. So if you're paying someone $70,000 a year, it could cost you $70,000 to re-recruit that position if you hire someone that's wrong for that role.
Because the cost isn't all in just advertising, isn't it? No.
There's direct costs and there's indirect costs, and I think people don't realise the indirect costs, the loss of productivity, even morale within the business.
Yeah. Wow, yes.
Not like you lose productivity for the person that's leaving, you lose productivity for the person that's coming on board because they actually need to go through a training and inductions. Mm-hmm. And everyone who's involved in that process, it's their time, and time is money. And so you forget that that person is actually being paid per hour for that, for recruiting that extra person.
Absolutely, and then they have to be trained, and somebody has to. Yeah, it's an expensive process. So the number one thing is not getting the right person.
Correct.
For the job.
Yeah.
What's next on the top 5?
So the next one I think is not understanding what to pay your employees. So there's 122 awards in Australia.
Yes, there is.
It is mind-blowing. And even for an expert, it's still mind-blowing because I can't know everything about every industry.
It's $28.72.
Yeah.
72? Yes, 72.
And obviously, as of the 1st of July every year, that changes. So the government goes through and changes the minimum conditions of employment and the minimum wage, and then that has a roll-on effect with penalties, overtime. So it's just getting it right. And lots of businesses don't get it right because they don't understand, and it's a minefield. There's been a lot in the news lately about underpayment of wages. There was a really famous chef who recently underpaid a lot of his staff. I
remember hearing about that, yes. But obviously with 122 awards, there's a lot of scope for confusion.
There is.
Where do you even start? Like, I want to hire somebody. I want to hire someone like an admin person for my business, like or a bookkeeper or something. Where do you go to look for the awards?
So Fair Work, Ombudsman, is amazing. They have this most amazing site and a really good tool called PACT, P-A-C-T. So you can go on there and you can fill the bits in and it spits it out. Where it comes into problems is the fact that if you have a dual business, so sometimes businesses can have 3 employees on 3 different awards. So I have a client at the moment who's in retail, and because they have a side business with a bit of a cafe attached to the retail, instead of being under the hospitality award for their baristas, they're actually under the retail award because that's the main business. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my Lord, that is confusing.
It is. It's very confusing.
So in that instance, if you have a dual business, and there's a lot of people out there like that, which takes precedence? Is it the...
It's the retail award in that. So you can always ring them up. I mean, they're amazing. They've got advisors on the end of the phone. They have a separate line for small businesses that you can ring through. It doesn't take that long at all. They pretty much, every time I've rung, they've answered the phone within a couple of minutes, and you can ask the question. You can email them and they will email the answer back to you.
Wow.
I need to change professions.
That's a really great resource.
Yeah.
Pact. So that's Fair Work Ombudsman. So
Yes.
if you want to get your awards straight before you hire the person, know what you're going to, which you probably need to do before you start the interview process, so you can tell them what they're going to be paid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I mean, just going back a little bit, I started thinking about the hiring issue, and I find with my clients, they seem to hire friends.
So that brings me probably to my third point,
Oh, awesome.
which is...
Oh, kinetic energy, just for the record, I was late. I didn't talk to anyone.
So that brings me to my third top mistake, is actually not having a written employment contract or having an outdated employment contract. And although legally in Australia you do not have to have it written down, it can be verbal. Best practice is to write it down.
Yeah, because it could happen at a barbecue.
Particularly best practice with your friends,
Yes.
because they may be your friends one day and it's amazing, but you want to make sure that in the future you don't compromise your friendship. So just be clear and concise about everything. Write everything down. Have it all written there so it's very clear about what your expectations are. So there's no issue further down the track if something goes wrong about what they should be doing, what hours they should be turning up, what pay they're getting.
So this contract can, let me just clarify, this contract, does that also have part of a job description within it, or is that something separate, or should it?
You can add it to it. You can have a section with a job description, or you can have a job description separately. It just depends on how you want to go about that. But that's a good idea, to be clear about your expectations of your job, your role, your responsibilities.
Absolutely. It's really hard as an employee to meet, to meet KPIs if you don't know what they are.
Yep.
Like, oh, I didn't know you want me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have it in writing.
And just when you have a conversation with someone, you remember parts of the conversation. Sometimes you don't remember all of it. So you could have talked about what was agreed about your employment contract, but then because it's not written down, one or the other person may forget what was agreed. And that's when it leads to, mistakes and confusion. And if something does go really wrong and you end up in the tribunal, which hopefully you don't, if you have it written down, you've got something to refer back to, whereas verbally it's one person's word against another.
I guess also this would, having a piece of paper with it all written down could also save a friendship as well as a business.
Do you know, one of the things I do if I have a verbal conversation is I follow up with an email.
Yep.
And I say, following on from our chat this morning or on Saturday, or, it's even with friends as well.
Do you remember what you promised to do for me?
Like, oh, yeah.
So you say, then people go, where's my money? For what?
Yeah.
We had that discussion when? And it's not written anywhere.
We've all got memories like colanders these days. There's so much stuff
Yeah.
going in there that stuff gets squished out the little holes.
So that's a really good point. If you're not going to do an employment contract, at least follow up in an email and write
Yes.
your expectations down. At the very minimum. That's a really good thing to do.
Is there somewhere, like if you want to be all contracting, is there somewhere that you can get like boilerplate templates or something for contracts?
A lot of the awards, if you're part of a body, they do have part of your registration. They have an advice line that you can ring up and you can get templates. There's obviously a lot on the internet. Under Fair Work, they have all templates on there as well that you can look up and download and use those as well.
Fantastic. Oh, this is great.
It's awesome.
So that was number 3. What's number 4 on your hit list
So
here?
I think just the employment status. So understanding the difference between full-time, part-time, fixed-term, independent contractors. A lot of mistakes are made around employing someone as an independent contractor when they're actually an employee. So what that means is, when you're an independent contractor, obviously you don't get paid for your annual leave, your public holidays, you just get paid a set rate. You manage all your own finances, your superannuation, your tax and everything, which is great. But sometimes that person isn't really truly an independent contractor. They're actually an employee.
What's the difference? How? Yeah, what are the mistakes?
Good that the ATO side is here too.
Yeah. It's the level of control you have over that person.
Oh, like well, what do you mean?
So as an employee, you take directions from your manager and they control the work that you do, whereas an independent contractor may get a project or a job or told, and they can manage that how they wish. They can have a subcontractor come in. The employer doesn't have any proper control over that person.
Because I even say to people, can this contractor give the work to someone else to complete? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And then I say that's not a contractor.
Yeah.
And I always give the whole description of a duck and a chicken.
Yep.
And I say if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck,
it's a duck.
It's a duck. So that's employee, contractor.
Yeah.
It is huge, isn't it? I find that.
And unfortunately, there are companies out there that are doing it on purpose. It's called sham contracting. So they're actually knowing that they're doing the wrong thing. It happens quite a lot in logistics and transport and a lot of industries where you can contract out stuff, but they really are an employee, but they're saying that they're an independent contractor. So, in the news lately, there was a logistics and transport company that came under fire for doing...
I saw that one.
Did you? Yep.
Massive fines coming. I was like, oh...
Ow. Well, this is a really interesting, direction because I know I've been in the circumstance where I have, if you put in an invoice, does that make you an employee or an independent contractor?
So invoices are independent contractors. So as an employee, you will get, if you're a full-time employee, it's 38 hours per week, you will get paid... Regardless of, you don't necessarily have to put a timesheet in. You'll get, and what you're supposed to do is be guaranteed the 38 hours. I've come across small businesses where they don't quite understand that. Oh, we weren't that busy, so I let them go home after they've only done 30 hours this week. I'm like, but you have to pay them for 38 because they're on a full-time contract.
Yeah.
So if you can let them go home, but you still have to pay them for the additional 8 hours.
You're paying for nothing. Yeah. Unless I guess you've got some kind of understanding with them or an agreement to maybe you could work some extra hours next week when it's going to be busy, like end of financial year or something like that.
Oh, that's the time in lieu stuff, which I find... I personally also find that confusing, where it's time in lieu, and I've seen some employers get caught almost in a trap. I could be wrong here, but they say it's time in lieu, but then if it doesn't go well between employer and employee, because it's a verbal type thing, then they start to argue over time.
And so some awards don't allow for time in lieu either, or enterprise bargaining agreements. So they don't allow for that, so you can't do it at all. So it just depends on what type of contract you're on. Are you on a common law contract? Are you under an award? Are you under an agreement? And
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite complex. This is great. Now, what's your in the top 5 hit list? What's number 5?
So I just think the onboarding process, onboarding an employee really well makes so much difference. The induction, just having everything ready for them, and just showing them around and making sure they've got their job description and they have everything there, and
Yeah, that's it. Like everyone out there, I'm pretty sure, has gone through. Most places do terrible onboarding.
Yes.
Yeah, look at us. Yes, they do. Your computer's not set up. You don't have an email. It takes you like 3 days to become effective, and then there's mucking around with getting you trained.
Then there's this wave of work that just hits your desk because everyone's anxious for you to get started. And you're right.
But even not even about the work stuff, but even just about having a document that just sort of shows, guess what, there's a coffee shop down the shop, or this is where you can park, or this is where we have lunch, or this is where the bus stops, or just those little things that just make it so important to a new employee to feel comfortable on their first day, because obviously generally they don't know anyone there.
No.
So,
and I'm thinking of moments where Friday lunches was just a thing that we did. and then you could tell who was new. They just looked spare, like a deer in the headlights, staring at everyone going, what's going on?
Or you rock up in your business suit and you're like, oh, it was casual Friday, but no one told me.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I guess those kind of informal things as well as the formal things, onboardings, like this is what happens, you get paid, blah, and, give us your superannuation deals, blah. But it's the little things that make it a really great working environment. We go out for drinks here. This is a great place to eat. Yeah, it's
just the personal and the nuances of the business and how the culture is. Do you have to work? I know you might have a contract that says office hours are 9 to 5, but is it really 9 to 5? Could you turn up at 8:30, or is that really totally unacceptable in that business? Or can you be a little bit late? And just those personal things.
Yeah, that's a really lovely idea to change the whole atmosphere
and just make them feel comfortable. At one of my workplaces, there was a lady who just worked till 4 because she started early, and then she got to 5. She stood up, and we were still like, and she's like, oh, is it okay for me to leave? I felt so bad for her because she started to feel really lazy. But it is 8 till 5, but we were smack bang in the city, so we just became that culture of leaving around 5:30. And that was it. But it wasn't spoken of or anything or expected.
Yeah, when people have different working habits and different lives, you need to be home for whatever it is, or you bring your lunch or you don't bring your lunch, or you like to go casual or you don't. Yeah, it's really important to create that atmosphere at work. Thanks so much for coming in, Pia.
You're welcome.
Wow.
That was amazing.
Pia Engstrom, HR expert for small and medium businesses. I think we're going to have you back on.
Yes.
That'll be good.
People is a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thanks so much. You've been listening to Taking Care of Business on RTRFM 92.1, The Sound Alternative.